Thank you for joining us. Diabetes is an epidemic that affects tens of millions of people in the United States, hundreds of millions of people worldwide, and it affects your eyes, your heart, your kidneys, your nerves. It can take up to a decade off your life. But what is this condition? How do we control it? How do we turn this around? Well, simply put, diabetes is a condition where the body doesn't handle sugar very well. Sugar, specifically glucose, circulates around in the blood instead of getting into the cells where it belongs. What's going on? In your abdomen is the pancreas. The pancreas has the job of controlling blood sugar. I think of it as sort of a remote control. It's about the size and shape of a TV remote control, and that's what it's all about. The pancreas makes insulin, which is a hormone that gets into the blood, and it goes up to the muscles and the other tissues of the body to act sort of like a key, letting glucose from the blood pass into the cells of the body. Now, there are different kinds of diabetes, and in type 1 diabetes, are you familiar with this? It used to be called childhood onset diabetes. In type 1 diabetes, the problem is the pancreas itself. It's not making insulin anymore. Type 2, which used to be called adult onset diabetes, the pancreas is making insulin, it gets into the blood, but once it arrives at the cell is resisting it. The key is having trouble getting into the lock, if I can put it that way. So that's insulin resistance. And there's a third form called gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes is very much like type 2, except that it occurs during pregnancy. And after delivery, it goes away. But it's a sign that type 2 diabetes might be right around the corner. Now, there are genes for type 2 diabetes. It can run in families, as you probably know. You can see it in your grandparents and your parents, and then that means you might have genes that make you more likely to get it. But whether you get it or not depends on certain things. It depends on your weight. If you gain more weight, you're more likely to develop it. It depends on diet. If you're eating certain kinds of foods, the diabetes is more likely to manifest. And it depends on how physically active we are. If we're exercising a lot, it's much less likely to happen. Now, what's the current approach? I've got diabetes. I go see my doctor. The doctor sends me down the hall to somebody to counsel me on my diet. And they're likely to say, your problem is sugar. So don't have sugar. And don't eat things that turn to sugar rapidly, like white bread. As you know, it digests. And as it digests, it turns into sugar that gets in the blood. And don't eat other starchy foods that would elevate your blood sugar, like pasta or rice or potatoes or yams, that kind of thing. And as time goes on, that approach is a sensible approach and understandable, and it will lower blood sugar a little bit. But as time goes on, for most people, it's not enough. The dietitian or doctor is also likely to say a couple of other things. Let's keep fat kind of low. Because what really gets us in diabetes is heart problems, problems to our blood vessels. So the dietitian is likely to counsel you to reduce animal fat, saturated fat. That's the bad fat that elevates cholesterol levels and leads to heart problems. And if you need to lose some weight, you're likely to be counseled to knock some calories off your diet. Cut maybe 500 calories a day off to help you lose weight. Now, that's a sensible program, except for one thing. If you look around the world, who has the least diabetes? You see very little diabetes in, say, Japan or China, other Asian countries, at least if they're still on their traditional diet. And what's the dietary staple in Japan? It's rice. Rice is a carbohydrate. That's what many people with diabetes think. I don't want to go anywhere near that food. Well, they're eating lots of it. They're thin as rails, and they don't have much diabetes until fast food restaurants arrive in Tokyo and Osaka, and people stop eating rice and start eating burgers and French fries, and the diet westernizes. More meat, more fat, less carbohydrate, less starch, and you see diabetes rates exploding in Japan. Well, if on a high carbohydrate diet, a rice-based diet, if they don't have much diabetes, then it must be that carbohydrate isn't really the problem. So we also have looked at vegetarians. Now, people who are not eating meat, keeping fat low, avoiding animal fats, they have substantially less diabetes compared to other people. There's a religious group called Seventh-day Adventists, which researchers are very fond of studying. And they study them because pretty much all Adventists avoid alcohol, they avoid tobacco, they avoid caffeine, but about half of them are vegetarian and half are not. So it's a perfect natural experiment. Now, compared to the vegetarian Adventists, the non-vegetarians among them, the women have about 40% more diabetes, and the men have 80% more diabetes compared to the vegetarians. So this suggests that there's something about not avoiding the carbohydrate-rich foods, but avoiding the meats and fatty foods that somehow maybe should help diabetes. So researchers have been looking at this kind of diet actually for a lot of reasons. You know about the studies on vegetarian diets and heart disease. Dean Ornish's research, for example. He took people who had serious heart disease, put them on a vegetarian diet, along with other healthy lifestyle changes, exercise, stress reduction, not smoking. He showed that this diet actually reverses heart disease. It opens up the arteries again. The same kind of diet lowers blood pressure. It helps people lose weight. So we put it to the test. And we wanted to see, first of all, will this diet help people lose weight? Now, a lot of the studies that have been done before, they'll use a healthy diet, but they'll also put everybody on the treadmill, or they'll have them out for a brisk walk. So it's hard to tell. Is it the diet that helps? Is it the exercise that helps? What is it? So we did a study where we brought in a group of women, all of whom were after menopause. Everybody had a fairly severe, moderate to severe weight problem, and everybody felt stuck. They'd been on every kind of diet you can imagine, but we asked them to not exercise, not change their exercise at all, stay however active they were, but to just change their diet. And we compared two different diets. One was what you'd think of as a sort of standard healthy diet. Chicken and fish instead of red meat, no more than 6 ounces of meat per day. And we gave everybody a budget for fat, no more than about 60 grams of fat per day. That's the comparison group. The experimental group was vegan. Now, a vegan is not a person from the planet Vegas. A vegan diet means pure vegetarian diet, no animal products at all, okay? We also said, keep the oils low. So if you're taking your bottle of olive oil and going glug, 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 glug all over your pasta, stop doing that. It's low fat and it's vegan, but that's the whole thing. No portion control, no exercise, no nothing. And what we found was that after 14 weeks, the people on the quote-unquote healthy diet, they lost some weight, but nothing like the vegans. The vegan group was losing about 1 pound per week, week after week after week. Now, 1 pound doesn't sound like a lot. But what happens after about a year? That's 52 weeks. We're talking fairly serious weight loss. What was really remarkable was not just that they lost weight, but something was changing in their bodies. We measured how fast glucose was able to enter the cells of their body, and their insulin sensitivity was measurably improving. In other words, glucose was having an easier time getting out of the bloodstream into the cells, and if that's the case, then this isn't just a great diet for your heart and a great diet for trimming your waistline. This ought to be a really good diet for people who have diabetes. So we did another study, and this was done by the George Washington University, the University of Toronto, and funded by the National Institutes of Health. And what we did was we brought in 99 people. Everybody had type 2 diabetes, and we split them into 2 groups. One group got the best current diet. We followed the guidelines of the American Diabetes Association. Everybody met with a dietitian and got an individual plan that helped them to keep carbohydrates in the right range, to keep fat in the right range, to cut calories appropriately for losing weight. And that was the best diet that we currently have. That's the comparison diet, the control group diet. The experimental diet was 3 things. A vegan diet, meaning no animal products. It was low in fat as well. And a third thing, we used the glycemic index. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, where we really kept sugar low and certain things that release sugar rapidly. We kept them low as well. But we did not really restrict the total amount of carbohydrate people could have. They could eat actually more carbohydrate. More on that in a little bit. We found a few things that were quite striking. First of all, everybody was reducing their fat intake in a good way, and the people on the vegan diet were actually eating more carbohydrate than before, which is what you'd expect. They're eating beans and rice and yams and healthy foods. But when we measured their blood glucose, we found that it was improving. And there's another test that's very important. It's called A1C. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's the principal way for tracking diabetes control. If I do a glucose test on you right now, what that tells me is how good is your glucose control right now. But A1C shows me an average over the last 3 months or thereabouts. So it's a really good indicator of control. And for a point of reference, you want it to be below 7 or as close to 6 as you can. If you've got diabetes, you want it below 7 or as close to 6 as you can. Now, at the beginning of the study, our average A1C in our groups was around 8. Not good control. Well, the first thing that we found when we looked at the results of this study, after 22 weeks, the people in the ADA group who had been following their program had a drop of about 0.6. That's good. That's in the right direction. But the vegans had a drop of about 1.0. Now, that's everybody. We had no dropouts in this study, and we managed to get a needle in everybody's arm, and we found that their A1Cs were dropping. But there's one big problem with this study, and that was for so many people, the diet was powerful, their medicines were powerful, they became hypoglycemic, meaning their blood sugars were falling so low, and that freaks everybody out a little bit. What it's a sign of is that you're on too much medicine. So we have to ratchet you back. And that happened in a lot of cases, especially in the vegan group. We had to take people either off medicines or reduce the amount of medicines that they were taking. And that really mixes up our results. I'm trying to test the results of the diet, but what I'm seeing is, well, they're on less medicine. So we did another analysis just looking at those people where everything stayed exactly constant. Their medicine stayed the same and everything else. And in this group, in the ADA group, the comparison group, the drop in A1C was 0.4. The drop in the vegan group was 1.2, 3 times higher. And you know what? For comparison, a typical oral diabetes medicine that you might, a typical prescription drug, drops A1C between 0.5 point and 1 point. What I'm suggesting is this diet is stronger. Now, we found some other advantages of this diet as well. First of all, people were losing weight. They lost weight very impressively, and the remarkable thing is they weren't counting calories, they weren't restricting portions, they weren't limiting their carbohydrates at all, and still they were losing weight, actually faster than on the control diet. Their cholesterol levels fell very impressively, blood pressure came down, and a lot of people said, you know, this diet is easier. I'm not counting things, I'm not weighing things. You got to learn some new tricks, don't get me wrong. There are certain things you're not going to eat at all. But it's kind of like quitting smoking. You just set it aside, you forget about it, and then you eat unlimited amounts of the grains and beans and vegetables and fruits. And you just don't count things, and it seems to work out well. So let me summarize what this program really includes. There are 3 steps. The first one, it's a vegan diet. And why vegan? Because if there are no animal products in the diet, if there's no beef or chicken or fish or dairy products or eggs, how much animal fat is in the diet? None. 0, right? So that's very easy. And the nice thing about that is that the bad fats, the saturated fat that you hear about, the fat that raises cholesterol, saturated fat also is what seems to really cause this insulin sensitivity to worsen. That's especially common in the animal fats. They're gone. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I don't know if I really have to go that far. I'm going to switch from beef to chicken. Maybe that'll do it for me. Well, let me give you the bad news. The leanest beef is about 29% fat as a percentage of its calories. The leanest chicken, I'm talking about chicken where you take the skin off, you throw away all the dark meat, skinless chicken breast is about 23. It's not a lot lower. And fish vary. Some of them are lower, some of them are higher. Some of them are a lot higher. If you take a cut of salmon, like Chinook salmon, it's about 50 or 52% fat as a percentage of its calories. Now, on the other hand, a bean is about 4% fat. Broccoli is about 8% fat. Rice is between 1 and 5, depending on the variety. Potatoes, about 1% fat. Yams, sweet potatoes, about 1% fat. There's just no comparison. And there's one other advantage. Animal protein is really not your big friend. At Harvard University, the Nurses' Health Study looked at women who had a mild loss of kidney function and looked at what caused their kidneys to wear out as the years went by. And the number one factor was animal protein. Now, a lot of us grew up with, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, in the middle of cattle country, and we thought, you know, you want to have beef and you want to have a meaty diet. But it turns out that plant protein is actually easier on the kidneys. In the Harvard study, the number one contributor to the gradual loss of kidney function was animal protein. And that matters because if you've got diabetes, 40% of people with diabetes already have lost a little bit of kidney function. You want those kidneys to last for the rest of your life. If you've got hypertension, same story. You've already lost some function, quite likely. Getting away from animal protein is going to help you. Okay, step 1, vegan. Step 2, low in fat. You go into a restaurant, and they understand about making vegetarian foods, but it seems like the chef is just married to that bottle of olive oil. It goes glug, glug, glugging all over your salad, your pasta, almost everything in there is loaded with fat. Now, why do I care? Fat is the densest source of calories that we eat. If you take a gram of fat, it has 9 calories in it. Now, a gram is not much. A gram is about a 28th of an ounce. You compare that to carbohydrate. A gram of carbohydrate, wherever it's from, has only 4 calories. Remember those numbers. You can have beef fat, 9 calories per gram. It can be chicken fat. It can be fish fat. It can be olive oil. It's still got 9 calories per gram. It can be extra virgin olive oil. It can be extra virgin olive oil. It can be extra virgin olive oil. It can be 1040 motor oil. It actually has 9 calories. Don't try this at home. Okay, but it does have 9 calories in every gram. Okay, now people say, oh, carbohydrates are fattening. They only have 4 calories per gram. If you look at countries where their diet is based on rice and other carbohydrate-rich foods, they're thin. Okay? So you want to go get away from fat. And there's another thing about this. Fats are mixtures. Olive oil has about 13% of it is plain old saturated fat. That's the kind that gets in our way. So fats are mixtures. Fish fat, same story. There are the good fats, the omega-3 fats, but there are also the bad fats. 15 to 30% of fish fat, plain old saturated fat. And your waistline doesn't care. It'll pack on bad fat, good fat, any kind of fat. If you want to lose weight, get it out of the diet. Okay, step 1, vegan. Step 2, low in fat. That really means keeping the oils low. Learn non-oil ways of cooking. Step 3, low glycemic index. Now that sounds like a mouthful. The glycemic index is a neat kind of a test that was devised in 1981 by David Jenkins. What he did is he brought in volunteers, fed them individual foods, and then measured their blood sugar. A high glycemic index food causes blood sugar to rise rapidly. A low GI food causes the blood sugar to rise slowly. And to make it real simple, the ones that cause a rapid rise and that we're going to avoid are white bread, also wheat breads, even whole wheat bread. For some reason, the wheat tends to cause a more rapid rise compared to rye or pumpernickel, okay? Sugar itself, certain cold cereals, you know what I'm talking about, where the cereals are kind of puffed up and that sort of thing. We're going to avoid them as opposed to oatmeal, which is fine. And just a couple of the fruits, like pineapples and watermelons. Also, white potatoes. Yams are okay. So the bad guys, sugar itself, the white and wheat breads, white potatoes, just 2 of the fruits, pineapples and watermelons, cold cereals. Otherwise, knock yourself out. Your best friends are going to be beans, green leafy vegetables. Instead of that potato, have a yam or sweet potato. Instead of the cold cereals, have oatmeal or the hot cereals. Instead of white bread, rye, pumpernickel bread. And you don't have to restrict the amount. Now, you'll notice something. I said you could eat these foods. Pasta, same story. Spaghetti has a low glycemic index. You might be saying, hey, wait a minute. I test myself after I have spaghetti, and my blood sugar rises. What you'll notice is as time goes on, it doesn't rise quite so much. Now, if it continues to rise, then that's not a food for you to eat. But for most people, what's happening, as the days and weeks go by, your insulin sensitivity is starting to recover. We're not restricting the carbohydrates from your diet. We're repairing the body's ability to handle them so that you can enjoy these foods again as you should be able to, okay? So stick with it and you'll see what we're talking about. Now, I have one important thing to say about the glycemic index. Use it in addition to being vegan and low in fat, not instead of them. A lot of people will say, well, I looked it up online and I found out that a greasy muffin has a low glycemic index. That's true because all that grease stops the sugar from being able to get through your digestive tract quickly. Be careful about that. Asphalt has a very low glycemic index, okay? So you want to have vegan first, also low in fat, and then when you're choosing within that, then use the GI, okay? With me? All right. Okay, now, what does this look like on my plate? Let's say I get up in the morning, I'm not going to have my bacon and eggs, because that's not vegan, but I can have a big bowl of oatmeal with cinnamon and raisins. How much? As much as you want. We don't use calorie limits here. I can have half a cantaloupe, and I can have some rye toast, which I slather with butter. No, I don't. Okay, dry rye toast, fine. Lunchtime, I'm at Taco Bell, and I have the meat taco dripping with grease. No, but I have the bean burrito, hold the cheese, I'm fine. Or I have a veggie chili or something like that. Dinner, we're at an Italian restaurant. I have the spaghetti Alfredo, no. Meat sauce, no. I'll have the tomato sauce on my pasta. I can have a nice salad. I can have the side vegetables. How much? Much as you want. We don't use calorie limits here. If you're hungry, you're not eating enough, okay? And stock some of these things on your shelf. Buy that oatmeal, buy cans of beans or the dried beans, cook them up, and make sure that you've got the healthy things so that when you're hungry, it's all there for you. Now, let me finish with just a couple of important things. Take a multiple vitamin. Why do I say that? It has vitamin B12 in it, which is not very commonly found in vegetarian foods, and you do need it. It also has vitamin D, which comes from the sun. You're not in the sun. You're at work, or you're inside, and so the multiple vitamin will cover you there. Also, see your doctor. Make sure your doctor knows. You're not going to believe me. You're going to find that your diabetes comes under better control. You're going to find your numbers are coming down. See your doctor so that if you need to back off your medications, you can do it. Also, make sure you've got a glucose meter and check yourself. You're going to wake up some morning feeling shaky. You can be glad, because that's a sign that your blood sugar is dropping, but you want to catch it and let your doctor know or your healthcare provider know so that you can come down on your medicines if you need to. So, now we've got our basic tools. Let's put them to work.
If I hadn't gone to a vegan lifestyle when I did, I'm sure I would be up probably past 400 pounds by now. I probably would have had a heart attack, a stroke, or most likely could have even been dead.
I had the infections, my joints hurt, blood pressure was terrible, eyesight was going.
Could a vegan diet really be healthy? This is what was intriguing me.
I was losing the weight, my sugar was improving, my energy level was up.
I don't have to take pills anymore.
Without increasing exercise or anything, you had another way of controlling blood sugar.
Blood sugar, from being at a 10, I went to a 6.5.
Well, I ditched my personal physician because he didn't want to believe me that I had cured my diabetes through diet.
The more I tried it, the more convinced I was.
If I can change my diet to fix this, I think that physicians have an obligation to tell people about that.
I don't have any symptoms of diabetes anymore. My doctor has pronounced me free of type 2 diabetes. You know, you live in pain, both mental and physical pain, for so many years you don't even realize it until it's gone. The first 6 months it was difficult, but after that it just becomes second nature. Before I went vegan, I was 330 pounds. I lost 160 pounds in 11 months. I used to have to almost drag myself up the banister just to get up a flight of stairs. Cholesterol used to be 225, now it's below 150. Triglycerides used to be over 500, but now it's down to I think 39. My doctor was amazed because he never encountered anyone whose triglycerides were less than 100. And I've kept the weight off now for over 5 years through just a simple vegan diet and daily exercise. I have enough energy to get up in the morning, ride my bicycle 15 miles to work a full 8 hours a day, hop back on, ride another 15 miles back home. My doctor tells me that she wishes that she had more patients like me.
You know, the doctor, when I was at that emergency room, he said, you're diabetic, you're probably going to have to take insulin for the rest of your life. I was thinking, I'm under 30, there's no way I'm going to take insulin, I've got to find a different way to do this. And found out that there were doctors out there that were curing people of diabetes by putting them on a low-fat vegan diet. Even though I don't eat meat and I don't eat dairy anymore, I had to figure out how to kind of work around that. For me, it was learning how to cook. I'd say about 2 months in, I really saw an effect on my energy. My weight started to drop, down from 340 at my heaviest is 120 pounds. My eyesight started to return to normal. I used to have these horrible lower back problems that I don't have anymore. And after I made that change, I could go out, I could take classes, I could go to the gym, I could go see a movie, I could do work, and I could do it all in the same day. And I think it was a natural process. The healthier I was getting, the healthier I wanted to eat, and my taste buds reflected that. It's kind of a double shot when you go on a low-fat vegan diet. Not only are you alleviating the symptoms, you're also treating the root cause of diabetes. And I can't think of any better advice to give people.
The bacon and egg breakfast, the buttered toast. I've since learned that those are the very things that that led to my diabetes. And they told me my pancreas wasn't working, and they sent me home with the 52 units of insulin, the oral medicine and the medicines for cholesterol and high blood pressure, and said I'd be on those things the rest of my life. It's nice that people write books on reversing diabetes because they sometimes tell us that there are other ways of than the drug route. Before the vegan approach, I had 5 years of fighting diabetes. Right within the first few weeks, about 2 or 3 weeks, I noticed the effect on blood sugar. As long as I stayed with the vegetables and avoided the high glycemic index stuff, you had another way of controlling blood sugar, and that thrilled me because this is a healthy way to go, and I've got full control of mastery of this thing.
Before I started the vegan diet, I was tired all the time. I'm a school teacher. I couldn't wait to get home and take a nap. I followed a really strict diet. I had to measure everything, weigh everything. I even had to count the number of grapes I would eat because my sugar had to be balanced. When I went to see the doctor in January, they prescribed cholesterol medication, they prescribed more diabetes medication, and I had just started the vegan diet. I was about a week into it. I went in, did my 3-month checkup, and they thought that the medication was working. My cholesterol was down. I thought, oh, the medication is working. I told them, I said, you know what? I never took it. I bought it, but the containers are still in my house unopened. This was just the vegan diet. That was when my life turned around, made a 180 as far as diabetes is concerned. At first, I did it consciously. I said, I'm not gonna exercise for the first 3 months. I wanna see what change the diet would do in my health. And after, I would say about a week or two, I started noticing that I'm smiling more, my attitude is different, I'm walking around the classroom, I'm not tired. My weight went down about 25 pounds, I lost 25 pounds. If you maintain, the vegan diet, you won't need medication. And now I'm the cook. Like, I'm the one preparing the meals because they're so easy and fast and delicious, really good.